Michael, it's Capital Projects Committee, so we're televised, okay?
Okay.
We are
Oh,
televised.
thank you.
So put your pants back on.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My name is Mark Skidmore, and I'm Alderman from Ward 1, 2.
And I'm Mike Martin, Alderman for Ward 2.
I'm Jeff Sassy, Alderman Ward 3.
Bob Garza, Alderman Ward 3.
Mayor Jamie Clary.
Terry Goodwin, Alderman, Ward 4.
Is that the same thing?
Jana Garten, Alderman, Ward 5.
Thank you for everyone being here today. This is an important meeting. This is the next step in the process of trying to come up with some solutions to traffic. And as the survey shows that the city conducted, citizens expect us to act. They want some action to try to help better navigate in the city. And so this workshop will be focusing on that. I appreciate those members of the public that are here. I think we have a sign-up sheet for public comments. We will have public comments at the end of the meeting so that everyone will be able to see the presentation and then possibly make comments if they have any comments on what has been presented. So public comments will be at the end of the meeting. And with that, if I don't have any other comments from members of the committee, Alderman Skidmore or Alderman, we're ready to go? All right, let's go. So I'll call Jesse Eckenroth. He is our COO of the city, and he will be orchestrating the presentation tonight. It's your microphone, Maestro.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. There is a lot of detail, a lot of information in this plan, but the goal or the outcome of the project is simple, and that's really to assist with one thing, prioritizing city resources. So the whole goal of this should be a way for us to prioritize city resources. Just like we did with the fleet replacement schedule that for fire and for police with their vehicles, where we plan for and budget for on an annual basis to do a certain number of replacements. This could be similar sort of prioritization where we just plan for these and we do these projects and we budget for these year over year. So the plan before you is a draft. This is not like the Planning Commission's long-range land and transportation plan. This is simply a staff-level plan that we put together. It's not perfect. The ranking system isn't perfect. The plan isn't perfect, but the plan does offer an objective way for the city to improve one of the single most frustrating thing for residents, and that's the congestion in the city. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's going to be a lot of things that we can tweak on this plan. That's the reason for the meeting tonight. This is just in draft format. Even the ranking system that's up here is in draft format. But opposed to the trash survey, you know, when we put out the trash survey, we got a lot of complaints at City Hall in the past about trash. So when we put out the trash survey, we were very surprised that around 80% of the folks said that they were very satisfied or satisfied with the trash service, which to us was a surprise because we generally just hear about the complaints. When we put out the survey for the transportation plan and the infrastructure survey, the results we got back were that most people thought we needed a lot of help. And the results, I would say, were poor, right? It reflected poorly. We have a kind of a word scramble up here that you'll see from comments that people submitted. So one of the reasons that staff put this together and we didn't go outsource is because we felt like a lot of people who live here, we drive these streets every day, and no one's really questioning whether our infrastructure and our streets should be a priority, and that's what the survey results said too. So infrastructure is one of the things in the city that almost everyone interacts with on a daily basis. You know, you don't always call a policeman to your house, you don't always have a fire, you don't always go to a park, you don't always come in and talk to our codes department, but you're gonna drive our streets every day. You're gonna be at an intersection. So this is one of those items that affects the lives of residents of this city on a daily basis. So the impact of this can be tremendous, and it can be a beneficial impact to everyday lives of the residents here. So from my perspective, this is really going to act as a financial planning document, because if we set a priority to do these projects and we have to plan for them, we have to budget for them on a year-over-year basis. So from a high level, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So we're going to each have a section when we get into this plan, and we're going to first bring Casey up. She's going to talk about the public survey that we did. Obviously, tonight is an extension of that, so we can have public comment, but Casey's going to come up and just give a brief overview of the survey that went out to the public. I'll let you start.
So I know we've talked about the survey a lot, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time. Just want to hit some of the high notes, some of the things that we didn't previously share in our high-level overview. And so probably, hopefully on your screen, you can see it better. It's a little, some of those words aren't as strong here. But one of the questions in the survey was, give us one word to describe the current traffic in Hendersonville. And so this takes those words, or the majority of those words. I did have to remove some four-letter words because that was the word of choice, and we thought maybe that's not the best for up here. But you can see congested was the number one word used throughout. That's just the term and the way people are describing our current situation. This is also in the packets. You can see it a little better. So this question asked residents to agree or disagree with these statements. And so one of the things that stands out here too, as we mentioned before, is 85% of the people that took this survey thought congestion was a problem. They either strongly agreed or agreed. So that really stands out. And then you can see the others. So anything in blue is where they agree or strongly agree. The gray is that they're neutral, they have no thought. And the orange and the red is that they would, I might have said that backwards. The blue is where they disagree. So they don't like the statement. And the orange and the red is that they would agree. So you can see there are some things that when you combine with the neutral plus the agrees, that there aren't that many people upset with some of those, but congestion being the number one thing that really stands out, again, as the problem. And here we gave them options to rank what's important as far as improvement options we can look at. And those three there, the signal synchronization, the reducing congestion, and improving road capacity stood out as something that they really wanted to see us work on more. When we looked at some of the other questions, it was very clear. Obviously, everybody wants to see maintenance and improvements, but more than anything, improvements stood out with over 93% strongly agreeing or agreeing that they wanted us to make improvements to the signals and to the roadways above and beyond just maintenance. We did take over half of the respondents provided us open-ended comments listing specific projects or areas that they wanted us to focus on. So we categorized those so that we could kind of better extrapolate what do those mean? Are there things that we can glean from that? Are there specific areas that we've missed and we should look at? And these categories here, these 8, were the top things that were listed within those comments. So that just kind of gives you an idea. Right up next to just general, the Drakes Creek Park exit was the top one that people talked about. We did hear a lot of people say things about roundabouts and using things like that. So it's very helpful. If you want to look at those, I'm not sure, I think we sent out the link, but we can send it again where you can actually read all 1,307, I think, comments that were individual or specific to areas. Yeah, so those would be the top 8. So I removed, because the number, like when we categorized them, the most were just miscellaneous comments that weren't really into any category. But then as we got into the categories, the number 1 was Drakes Creek Park exit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, yes, sir. So those are the top 8.
If you would, push your button when you speak, because, okay.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to turn it back over to Jesse.
All right, so with a 93% of people saying they agree or strongly agree that infrastructure improvements are needed, it kind of goes back to the point where, we don't ever really go out in the public and people say, oh, no, the roads are good, don't ever improve them. Everyone
Yeah, I
is saying
think the
the
other
same thing.
7% misread the question.
Yeah, probably. So I'm just going to go back to here. That was a citizen survey. Keith's going to come up and go over the goals overview. Ms. Locke is out today, so I'm going to do the ranking overview. We're going to talk about the projects, and then we're going to get into the third-party review just a little bit. We already went out. I'll just hit it now. They did provide comments back. We haven't incorporated them into the plan yet. But basically, the third-party review from an engineering firm, they concurred with what we had in the plan. They just have some additional comments to add to it. So we'll bring those to you guys next time. So I want to bring Keith up, and he's going to go ahead and go over the goals overview.
Yeah, looking at the goals, we try to keep the goals somewhat simple. One of the things, let me see, there we go. And we define 3 specific goals. These are goals that are also supported with what Casey was talking about with the citizen survey, which was, I think, 2,442 folks that had responded. And so these goals that I'm going to mention are supported with a lot of those different comments as well. One of the goals is to decrease congestion. This is a little bit more reactionary, where we have congestion and we're wanting to decrease it. The second goal would be to improve safety, and the third goal, improve circulation. It seems like it is closely related to congestion, but it's a little bit more proactive, looking to, once we decrease congestion, is looking at how to also improve circulation that improves the flow of traffic. A couple of things that we're looking at on the plan, just to kind of give you an idea of how we were looking at the information and how we were kind of delineating what we were looking at and how we were evaluating. One of the things is we wanted to look at what areas of the city are experiencing the most congestion issues currently. And this map up here kind of shows those areas. It doesn't mean there's not some other areas that are experiencing some congestion, but these are the areas that, as we live and work here, we all know these areas are pretty hot spots for congestion. One thing you can see on that map, on this particular map, and JP put these maps together, and he did a great job, by the way, but you can see the location of the railroad tracks. Also you can see the location of the waterways with the inlets and the lake, and then also there's a lot of streams and things like, and ditches and things like that are throughout our community. And these barriers do create obstacles that do limit or make it hamper or make it more costly or difficult to have as much connectivity as we would like. And some of the factors, in addition to those issues that are more geographic in nature, that are contributing to congestion on our roadways, are frequent interruption of traffic signals and stop control intersections, undersized roadways where they're not sized properly, a lack of connectivity, and that's connectivity where we have connectivity within neighborhoods, from one neighborhood to another. Some of those back ways to get around traffic. When we don't have those back ways, it pushes everything to the main intersections and then can put pressure on those. Poor access control and a large number of open curb cuts where you have large curb cuts, especially probably on West Main Street. We have a lot of areas that actually makes that difficult. Also, growth in the commercial and residential development, is putting pressure. It's not just the pressure of residential development, it's also the pressure of commercial development that's occurring as well, generating traffic. Next, one of the things that we looked at is what areas of the city are currently aren't experiencing a significant amount of congestion and traffic-related issues. And you can see on this map, it doesn't mean there's not a lot of traffic and there's not some congestion, but it's not significant to the level of the other areas. And then looking at, those areas and what are the attributes of the areas that things seem to be flowing pretty good, even though there's a high volume of traffic. And a lot of the key things that are common in these areas are that there are a limited number of curb cuts. There's good connectivity of local streets where you've got a lot of kind of back ways in between neighborhoods to get around. Also, there's a limited number of intersections. And then also, there's a limited number of traffic signals as well. So those are some of the things that are kind of common with those areas that have a lot of traffic, but we don't necessarily experience the same frustration with congestion that we do in the other areas.
Go back to the previous slide, please.
Yes.
Previous one.
Previous one?
Yes.
Yes.
So did we do traffic counts to come up with the congestion in those areas?
But-
What methodology did we use?
Yeah, it's a couple of different things. We have some software that has what all that traffic information is. And when we look later, when we talk about the ranking, then our Public Works Department utilizes the latest information of average daily traffic counts for those particular areas.
Okay. Does that show New Shackle Island Road? Where is New Shackle Island Road?
Up the top.
Yeah, that would be the red area there to the left, where you can kind of see where it says 386.
Yes.
And see all those green dots?
Yes.
Those are all the different traffic lights.
Yeah.
And so you can see really in the highly congested areas, you got a lot of clustering of a lot of traffic lights.
Okay.
They're kind of compressed in there.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, one of the things that we wanted to consider in looking at are where are the areas that are projected to experience the majority of future growth and development in Hendersonville. And this map, shows that. And this is just a generalization of the areas that we feel will be most impacted by the future residential build-out as well as commercial build-out as well. And those areas, just to note what those areas are, Stop 30 Road, Drakes Creek Road, Centerpoint Road, Indian Lake Road, Saundersville Road, and really any place where we have a park, because as we grow as a community, the demand on parks are going to be higher, so we're going to have more traffic in and out. And then also Anderson Lane. So there was just a few that we wanted to mention that these are areas that will be impacted as we continue to grow into the future. And then next, just looking at what actions can we take to address, there's a lot of complex issues with our transportation system and some of the problems that we're dealing with. And what kind of different actions could we possibly take as we're considering different projects and looking at priorities? And then I'll just go through what a couple of those actions could be. Reducing the number of stops along congested roadways, reducing the number of intersections, reducing the number of curb cuts onto our roadways, increasing shared access, like especially within commercial areas where we have parking lots that are connected so that you can go from one business to another without getting back onto the main road. Improve the connections between local streets where we have stub outs within existing neighborhoods, and then, making sure that there's a continuation of those public roads as new development happens, so that we're having back ways and different ways around major intersections. Also looking at overcoming some of the geographic constraints with the location of railroads or waterways or and different things like that through our community. Those things a lot of times as we're looking at it do bring a significant price tag, but evaluating those in a realistic manner to determine what kind of alternatives that we have to work around those things as well. Improving stacking at intersections, just like when you come up to an intersection and there's not capacity to properly stack in an intersection when you're turning. Adding capacity through new turn lanes and strategic widening at different places. And then also the continuation of our synchronization of our traffic signals are very important as well in that continuation.
Okay, I'm going to ask another question. I want to encourage members if they have questions. So, traffic congestion is because of growth, isn't it, Keith?
Yes.
Because of growth.
Yes.
And is there any way that we can slow down growth until we catch up?
I think the thing with growth, where that, and I think we've talked about this over the last couple of years, but even if we didn't approve any new, let's just say residential developments, we already have so many that by right are already approved that we will grow over the next 10 years and the following 10 years, and then it'll start dying off. But we're going to grow about 10,000. So we're going to increase our population. Currently, today, I just calculated it's right around 65,000. And so eventually at full build out, we're going to be at around 80,000. And that can occur sometime within the next 15 to 24 years. So that amount of population, is already there by right, where people have the ability with already developments that are already approved. Then additionally, with our commercial sectors, we have a lot of commercial areas that aren't fully developed, and as those develop, those are going to generate traffic and commercial trips that are going to be generated from that. I don't think there's certainly things, I guess, if things weren't approved today, the impact would be a future impact, but it wouldn't be anything in the near immediate future because of the by right things that the city already has. And most of these things, I will mention that most of these things, especially from a residential development standpoint, these are things that were approved, prior to 2015, or they're things that were probably 2005 to 2015, a lot of them, that are now coming online today.
Say that again.
2005 to 2015, a lot of those developments that were approved during or prior to that time period, those are the ones that are still out there that are developing. I mean, some of those examples would be Millstone still building out, and Durham Farms, Mansker Farms, the back part of that. So there's a lot of development. So like shutting off the valve and then that will stop us where we're at. That's not going to continue. That's not going to be a possibility to do that. And that even if there was a possibility, which there's not really a possibility to shut off, the growth that's already been approved by right. The area around us in Gallatin and in the Sumner County, and even in Goodlettsville, that and White House, a lot of that growth is continuing, and that growth, is impacting our traffic because even though there's a lot of things business-wise that are getting placed in Gallatin and White House and grow in Portland and different places, still, people are preferring to come to Hendersonville to shop, and it's understandable. It's a very attractive place to shop.
We want them to come and shop and
Yeah.
get that sales tax. But let me ask you another question, and then there's several other.
Yeah.
Alderman Garza is next on the list. I'm interested in your thoughts on, because we're talking about growth and the congestion that growth brings. But out of Washington, I hear at least one of the presidential candidates talk a lot about lessening regulation to allow more building. And I just wonder how, as fast as we can try to keep up with congestion and widen roads and stuff, and even throttle back when we can, especially high-density developments, there's really not much we can do if Washington preempts local zoning codes, right?
Yes, that's always a possibility for that to be from a
Yeah.
federal level or a state level that could possibly
Yeah.
preempt some of the local things. And if that, who knows what would happen in the future, but if that did happen, more than likely there wouldn't be associated funding to help offset infrastructure cost.
Okay.
Locally,
Alderman
more than
Garza,
likely.
question?
Yes, Keith, just two questions, actually. One is, you mentioned the years up to like 2034 or 2040 when you were doing that
Yes.
study. Based on the fact that I don't see Hendersonville expanding its lines, what's the maximum amount that could fit in Hendersonville? Maximum.
Yeah, it's with the current, and this is generalization.
Of course.
But with the current available land and what it's zoned now, not zoning it more dense, then you're talking about a full build-out, population-wise, at about 79 to 80,000.
So is that number you said originally? You said up to 80,000. Okay, so.
And it's geographically, we all kind of understand how much land is left. But when you take the lake out of the calculation and you look at all the property that's zoned, that's undeveloped, then you're looking at, we're down to our last 9 to 11% of land to develop. So we're narrowing down on that full build out, here at sometime in the fairly near future, over the next, I think it was 14 to 21 years, sometime within that period, we'll be close to full build out.
So if we continue to look at our infrastructure, which we need to look at it, in my opinion, at 80,000,
Yeah, yes.
not 65,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Good point.
And the second part about that is in the complex, or some of the things you put here, were you including the new tunnel on the Saundersville area breakdown? Which is going to happen before this transportation thing is, on here, because this is 10 years, and I think that's in 5 or 6. And I think that would have something to do with the congestion or lack of congestion if that comes in like we think it will.
Yeah, I think, that falls into the railroad track is sort of a physical geographical barrier. And when that underpass is completed, that should help relieve some of that existing problems that you've got right there.
Yeah, I just didn't see it on here. That's why I brought it up.
It's, that project is the underpass project. That is listed in the plan as an identified project.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Alderman Bergdorf?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Frankly, all the questions I have been answered so far. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was asking about, so basically, my questions were, the city doesn't necessarily have to grow its urban growth boundaries to gain more population and more traffic throughout the city because the surrounding areas are continuing to grow at breakneck pace.
That's correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we will fill up at 80K. Do we have any idea, because we're not isolated, do we have any idea how the county growth and metropolitan growth will continue to affect city congestion and city growth? Have we looked at that? Is that just a broader scope?
It's kind of a broader scope. It's, I guess the best just simple example is as Gallatin grows, and it is growing, and it continues to grow, we're in between Gallatin and Nashville, and 386 and Main Street are really the main two roads to get there.
The heaviest congestion.
Yeah, so it does add.
And at exits of that area too.
Yeah, and so it does add, the growth to the east of us certainly impacts us here as well, which gives us good opportunities, and especially if folks are shopping here, but it also brings challenges. But I think that's what's exciting about this plan is that, this is going to be a tool, hopefully, as decisions are made in the future that help kind of shape where those investments are going to go and try to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Yes.
To make an impact on congestion now and into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Martin.
Thank you, Alderman.
Okay.
Thank you. So the horse is out of the barn for the developments that were approved between 2005 2015.
Yes.
So if we were those properties are laying dormant, kind of waiting to be developed. Just curious, if we ended up in the future instituting impact fees, could we still charge impact fees to those properties when they bring those developments back to the city?
Well, some of those, without going real super detail into it.
Yeah, don't go super.
Yeah. Some of those are planned developments, which the majority of our issues are planned developments. Some of those have per lot fee agreements. I think that's something that as we move forward in this impact fee study and eventually make a decision on it, that's something that will come to light. One thing I will just mention that's different in regards to planned developments, when we looked at it previously, that it didn't pass. When we looked at that before, we had planned development per lot, voluntary per lot deals that developers had initiated. And at that time, it was kind of thought that those would not have impact fees. But then what happened is when we were looking at impact fees before, a couple of planned developments got approved that specifically said they didn't have to do impact fees. And so now we have a standard that we have two different categories. Planned developments that had off-site per lot voluntary costs that were given to the city, and then those that the same thing was given, but the exclusion of any future impact fee burden is removed. So I think that might impact that decision where everything other than if there is a specific provision that was granted, and there's only 2 of those that were granted that, then it may be open to that. So impact fees could be a possible tool that could be utilized. And that's one of the reasons I think, we're looking at that, and BOMA want to take a deeper look at that from the transportation, how much we could generate to fund transportation and these needs that we're talking about tonight. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Alderman Goodwin.
Quick question, just to make sure I'm clear. You said that we have already approved between 2005 and 15 for 10,000 more residents, to build for 10,000 more residents?
That is, during that period of time, is the bulk of the things we're seeing coming online now. And that population of what's coming on, it's a combination of that additional 15,000 population we're going to gain is a combination of things that are already approved and zoning that already exist and the land's vacant. So there's not a particular development approved on it. It's just zoned where you could have residential, but nobody has built on it.
Okay.
It's a combination of those things.
Finished. Alderman Garden.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. You didn't expect all these questions.
No, that's okay. To be honest with you, that's exactly what we're wanting to do this evening.
Well, it's good. It's good to get a scope of what the future looks like, and then we're going to have to try to come up with resources to pay for it.
Right.
But take them. So, all right. Thank you.
Okay. And
Continue.
I'll turn it back over to Jesse.
All right.
Yeah, I think Alderman Garza's point is well taken, is, we don't want to be in a position 15 years from now and say we should have done this 15 years ago. We want to do today what full build-out is going to be. I'm just going to go back and just talk about a couple highlights here. One is that, again, this is a combination, too, of Keith said there were traffic counts. We know some of those traffic counts, but this is where we have all experienced traffic in these areas. If there's other areas that you guys have seen and are specific to, let us know. We can update this map, but a lot of this is based on the observation of us in the city. And again, the more stoplights go in, the more we have congestion in certain areas. And we don't really talk about the water so much. We don't look at it on here, but it is from a geographical standpoint. We put 2 peninsulas all the way out, that go pretty far down. We take all that traffic and we put it out on the main. So one of the goals in the project is we've identified some alternate routes to Main to try and pull that traffic off of Main. It's going to be very difficult to widen Main. There's already, parking lots and buildings that are right on the edge of Main, so it's going to be very difficult to go back, especially where we cross water to make Main Street wider. So that's just something to keep in mind. And when we started talking about how we overcome these barriers, we talked about, do you put a bridge between the 2 peninsulas? And it's very expensive. And how do you get across the railway? And, exit 8 is, in the $30 to $40 million for one crossing of the railway. So very, very expensive. So these things are challenging for the city, but that's why we're trying to think about them now and get ahead of it. Sarah is not here today. She may be a grandma today, so I'm going to go ahead and take this part for her. If you have very technical questions, I may not be able to answer them, but I think this is pretty straightforward. So this is the overview of how we have ranked the project. So we had categories, and the purpose of this was to make a ranking criteria that's objective. So we can have a systematic, objective way to rank the project. So we considered safety, the cost, the constructability, ADT, which is average daily traffic counts, is how many vehicles go through. Traffic flow, you can think of that as congestion, lack of congestion, and then critical facilities. So the weight of 30%, 20, 15, 15, 10, 10, you'll see how that's used in an example, but these are the 6 categories that we put together to rank the projects. Safety ranking, it has some, a scale of 1 to 5, and there's some criteria where it says high priority up there. There's some crash rate criteria, that's 15.75, that would identify high priority. A low priority is the lower priority crash rate. The city cost rating, which is the bottom illustration, is 20% of the ranking. And we use dollar signs in the plan, so you can see $1 sign is for a project that's $0 to $1 million. A 5 with $5 signs is your over $20 million project. So that's how the safety and the costs are ranked. If you go to constructability, number 1 is it's very easily constructed. Number 5 is it's prohibitively constructive. So, if we think about core land, that's prohibitive. If we're going to go and try and go and widen a road that's on core land or on the water, that's prohibitive. If it's land that we own, then it's easily constructible. So that would be a 1. Average daily traffic count, that's simply the vehicles that are rolling through that area. So it would score high if you have over 15,000 vehicles, and it would score low if you have 0 to 20,000. And 1 meaning it's high priority, 5 meaning it's not as high of a priority as 1. Traffic flow, this is common in the industry to refer to this as level of service. So they're ranked A, B, C, D, E, and F. And 1 is a level of service, LOS is level of service, is an F. That is a very poor ranking. That's congestion. Think of like a bumper to bumper, people honking their horn. That's an F, right? We got an F on that road. If a road flows very well, your level of service is going to be an A or a B, and that would be a 5. So again, we would prioritize, give a number 1 to a road that has bumper-to-bumper traffic, and we would not give as high of a priority to a street that has very good traffic flow. And then critical facilities.
Jesse, let me ask a question on that.
Yes, sir.
The average daily count. Are you taking into account the number of lanes on a road? Because a traffic count on a single lane road, let's say at 8,000, is significant to that same traffic count to a 4-lane road. So are we taking into account the number of lanes when we do the traffic count?
That's a really good question. So where the average daily traffic count does not take that into account, the next traffic flow does take that into account. So it's a mix of considering total users and the flow of that section of roadway or that intersection. So they are combined together to give weight to the higher number of vehicles, and there is some weight given also to how well that segment of roadway flows. And then critical facility, this is 20, I think it's 10% though. This is still in draft format, obviously. So if we're close to a school, we're close to a hospital, we're going to give that area a little bump, and then we just have some descriptives of how close they are. That doesn't necessarily mean it's within a radius. It means it's within a path of the road within that distance. And so this is an example of how we would actually rank on two different projects. So the project on the left is Imperial Road and Sanders Ferry improvements. The project on the right is New Shackle, Island Road, and Stop 30. If you go to that yellow section where it says weighted total, you'll see Imperial Road is 3.45 and then New Shackle is 2.7. So New Shackle is actually 2.7. Think of that as higher on the list. 3.45 would be below that. So in this example, New Shackle Island Road and Stop 30 would actually have a higher priority than Imperial Road and Saunders Ferry. So if we look at we'll go to the Imperial Road and Saunders Ferry, which is the illustration on the left. City cost is a 3, it's weighted at 20%, so you see the factor on the right. Safety is a 4 at 30%, traffic flow is a 3 at 10%, and then on down the list. So that is just a very objective way to say, hey, here's the cost, here's the traffic flow, here's the level of service. It spits out a computation, and then there's a weighted total. So this is how we have the draft ranking. This is still going through third-party review, but this considers, 6 different facets on how these projects are ranked. Yeah, so it's higher think of it as higher on the list. We're going to go from number 1 down the list. And then city cost it's not the cost of the project, it's the cost to the city. So if you take Exit 8, the underpass, that's $35 million. But the cost to the city is not $35 million since we have a grant. So we're just factoring what is the cost to the city. Any questions on the ranking system?
Yeah, just one, and you may have answered it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just one. Based on costs, and we know this is a 10-year plan here, have we weighted in the cost going up annually into this program to see if it means anything?
No, I think it would affect all the projects the same. Since the higher dollar projects are already given a different value, I think they would all probably shift. They may change a little bit, the real high dollar projects may, by the percentage, they might not get more, but by the number, they'd get greater. But
It should be an even shift.
I would think so. And these are, we haven't gone out and done detailed analysis, right? We've said, hey, there's these areas that we know that can that we could improve. So we would probably go back to these areas and get an engineering firm on to actually drop a set of plans. But these are the areas that have been identified, at least early on, that, we're all these projects, everyone would say, oh yeah, I've been to that intersection, and it is a tough intersection to get through.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, thank you. One quick question. Your formula, thank you. Your formula, is it standard across the board with all industry, as far as TDOT goes, as far as any other industry goes, highway?
Yeah,
Or
we
is it
asked
something
we
you
asked TDOT
created?
if we could get their criteria, and they would not release it to us.
Is that right?
It is, but you know what? One of the things after talking to TDOT is they said that constructability is a big factor with them. So that we actually added that after talking with TDOT.
Looking at this, I wanted to make sure that we had the same criteria, standards, basically, that TDOT does, because we work hand in hand with TDOT on several items. And I thought that it would be nice to utilize their systems to demonstrate our necessity in assistance.
If you have pool that I do not, I would welcome it. We have made the request. We have been denied. And so.
Am I allowed to call?
I don't have the pool, but.
Fortunately, we have a couple employees that know TDOT well, and they may have brought with them some information that was helpful.
Yeah.
Proprietary comes to mind, so.
And this is another reason for the third-party review. So we're going out to a company to do a third-party review on this who does traffic, not just for our city, but for a lot of cities, and is a big company. So that's one of the reasons we want them really to vet this. But, the other thing is there may be things that are more important to this community that aren't as important to TDOT. A lot of TDOT's projects are probably going to be tremendous projects, right? Mm-hmm. Where they go and they do big jobs, and they're doing the realignment of Old Shackle and Walton Ferry. There's I think 80-plus properties, 14 of them, I think, got turned into the Attorney General's office for eminent domain. So they're probably going to have different criteria than we have on some of our projects too. So this gives us some of the flexibility to look at it. But we are going to do a third-party review. We have asked the state. We did incorporate constructability from the state's feedback.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you, Chairman. The safety criteria, where does that information come from?
Our Public Works Department. As far as line of sight issues, accidents that have happened. So if we go back to safety, here is the priority ranking. So there's intersection crash rate data. So that's kind of what Public Works is looking at when they look at what is the safety of an issue. And if there's a safety issue on a known roadway, then it would score higher. It may be where the project cost is very high, so overall it may, rank in the middle, may rank high or low, but that is that's the highest weighted factor, and those are some of the objective criteria. I don't know exactly where the city engineer or the public works director pulls those from, but those are the criteria that they're using.
So you don't know where it says 2020 intersection crash rate 15.75. What does that mean? Do you know?
That is just a rating for the crashes that happen at that intersection. I don't know what specific report they're pulling to get that information. That's just the rating number that they'll use to assign a high priority. And then you can see the low priority is 0.017, if I can read that correctly from over here. And then medium priority would be between the high number and the medium number, and then medium low priority would be between medium and the low priority. So those are just kind of the criteria they put in for objectively, here's the high, here's the middle, and here's the low, and then the rank associated with them. But I don't know what exactly report it is. I can let you know. I can give us there and let you know what report that is.
That was going to be my next question. Thanks.
I just want to, you mentioned something about the Walton Ferry, Old Shackle Island State Project. What were the numbers of properties? And you said something about eminent domain. What?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I think it's 86 or 84 total pieces of property were needed to do that project. So that's where, just a section of someone's property wasn't needed, maybe the whole property was needed. And the last communication we had with TDOT on it, there were 14 pieces of property that went into the Attorney General's office, and that's when we were talking about if they had to use eminent domain on any of those pieces of property for that realignment. So that's the difficulty when you have places that are built out like Main Street or any of this, 14 eminent domains there. If it actually, I don't know if they all went through to eminent domain, but there was 14 that were turned in. And it took, that project's been going on for decades. So it is challenging when places are already built out to go and modify the road.
I've come to the conclusion that the most difficult aspect of improving a road is purchasing right-of-way. That is where, in my following of these projects, especially the Walton Ferry, Old Shackle, that's where it grinds to a halt because the state has to negotiate, and then if they can't, they have to go eminent domain, which nobody wants, nobody likes. But I guess if they didn't have that authority, and the state doesn't have to come to the city to get our approval for eminent domain or to the county, correct? Because that's a state project?
I'm not aware of the state coming to the city to ask about those proceedings. Yeah. I've been here 3 years, so I don't know if it happened before then, but I'm not aware.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to have Keith come back up and talk about project locations.
Thank you, Jesse. This map that you see here, and you have it in your packet in the draft plan, these are all the areas. There's 35 different projects that have been identified so far, and all the little red dots there show the location of all of those projects. And one of the things that I might mention is the projects that we identified, they're really more medium to larger projects. not a lot of really small, tiny kind of projects. I think there's certainly some smaller projects than the 35 that we've listed that the city is going to need to look at doing some different things. As a part of this plan, we're going to be listing the ones and kind of gathering together a list of what all those different possible small projects would be, so that we've got those to look at. Looking at the map there, you can see geographically it's distributed throughout the community, as well as if you remember those other maps that we looked at on congestion and future growth and things like that. This kind of lines up with that area as well. And I'm not going to go through all of the projects. All of those are in there, the 35. I will go to the one that ranked number 1, which I think everybody is familiar with, and kind of show you that within the plan, kind of what it looks like when we are presenting, a particular project. We'll have the map that'll show the area. This is the Avondale right turn lane, which has already been completed. It was not completed when we actually started this process several months ago, but you can see the ranking where Jesse covered on how the ranking is factored, and you can see where how it scored, and actually it ranked number 1. You can see on the estimated budget that it was under $1 million, that it was, and that the primary goal was to decrease congestion and improve safety, which I think it definitely has done, and this project is completed. And I think one of the things that it kind of demonstrates as well is with the criteria, as imperfect as it is on the whole ranking, that this project that BOMA had already decided to fund and do actually ended up being the top ranked project. So, I mean, that's kind of validating that, this was a good project for us to do, even as we compared it to all the other, quality projects.
Hey, Keith.
That could be done.
Yeah. We need to give credit to Keith and to Sarah and to Marshall and their staffs. They're the ones who brought this project to the board, and now that it's finished, you can see the value in it. It is very apparent, whereas there used to be cars backed up beyond the right side of this picture, and now it's 4 or 5 at the worst times. I go by there 3 times a week at 5:30, and it's significantly better. And I've heard many compliments about it, but it was Keith and Sarah and Marshall that really initiated this.
Yeah, and Alderman Garton you want to say something about that?
I've had a lot of.
Push your button in.
Sorry, yes. I've had a lot of positive feedback on that. A lot of constituents are really happy to see that. It's definitely helped that area. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it definitely, I think it definitely has reduced the congestion there, but even more importantly, I think it's really improved the safety. If you've ever tried to turn left out of there before this was done, or even right, it was pretty challenging because the traffic can back up right there at that particular location.
And I think it came in under budget, didn't it? Or close to budget, Jesse?
Probably. That's what it said. So that was, but this is just an example. This is one of the 35 projects that are on there. Projects that are on the, that in that 35, the Stop 30 intersection that's been going on for quite some time. That's on there. The Walton Ferry realignment with Main Street, where the utility relocation has already started. That's in here as well. So we've included all those projects that we're already, the larger ones that we've been doing with TDOT. We put those in there as well. And so one of the things you
Alderman Martin.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Are
yeah.
there any plans to widen Saundersville Road or add a center turn lane?
I think that's in here as a part of the Forest Park Saundersville Road.
Saundersville Road,
Okay.
this road.
Yeah. So there are some plans for improvements. It's mostly spot improvements. If some of you can remember when Forest Park got approved, there was some off-site per lot things that the city was collecting, and those are going to go to doing some of the different improvements. There was a traffic design improvement plan done that identified the areas that needed to be improved. But generally, I don't think it's a widening of the whole thing, adding lanes. I think it's mostly improvements at intersections with turning lanes and sight distance and lines and things like that. But one of the things I think we have looked at that would be looked at is out of Millstone. There's a future stoplight to be there. But one of the things that we would do is probably also look at the possibility and consider, a roundabout at that location as well. So improvements like that up and down through there, there's significant improvements that we're potentially looking at for that area.
So, you through? Yeah. So one of the things I really like about Saundersville Road, when I go to Country Hills Golf Course, is it has a medium
Yeah.
in the middle, and that not only aesthetically looks great, but it also is a safety feature. I know that they're more expensive than just putting down asphalt, but I hope that when we have the opportunity and the resources, that when we do improvements, to look at that model, because I think that is a model that is worth emulating.
Right.
Thank you.
And those can be medians in the proper location. Not only can be attractive, which I like, the medians, but they can actually help improve safety, and they can actually make traffic flow better if they're done correctly with the proper turn lanes and things like that. All right.
Do we have a cost of all these projects?
We don't have that at this point in time. All of the things, as you look at the plan, it's kind of a range. So,
Okay.
we know what the costs are of some of these larger projects, like the underpass and some of the other things. But we're just kind of given some ranges of what the costs were. But that is something we can look at least estimating what the totality of these are. It would still be a pretty rough estimate, but
Okay.
at least would give a number. And of the 35, it's just one of those things that the dollar figure of what it would be, wouldn't be something, when we're talking about these 35, it's not that we're going to have the financial ability to do 35 projects in the next 10 years, but that this would help looking at the limited resources we do have, where to target those resources.
Well, and we're obligated to use a portion of the sales tax that the citizens voted for such projects as this.
Right. And did you?
Are you
Oh,
good?
I'm sorry.
Are you good?
I'm finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I just wonder, I know on page 14, we have these key projects that could mitigate current traffic impacts and future growth. Are we going to be going over those?
On page 14,
14 on the online agenda.
on the online agenda.
Maybe okay.
See.
Then,
Oh, is it the one where we're talking about key projects? This one right here? Is it that one?
possibly, yes,
Yeah.
that's the one, page
Yeah.
10
What-
then, yes.
What that is, when you see that, and I think it's A through G, and those are just projects that we looked at, just looking at as before we're ranking everything, just looking at what are some projects that could mitigate current traffic impacts and future growth. And we just listed what some of those, possibly would, could be, just to kind of flush out some of these. We didn't do this for everything, but just looking at it as we're looking at trying to compensate for future growth, looking at what some of these are, and I can just list real quickly.
Well, so,
what some of
but
those
these are over and above what we currently have shown?
No, some of these are on the.
Some of
they're
these are
ranked.
on there?
Yeah, they're on there. And that's one of the things, this is a draft, and it's one of the things we have discussed with those in there. It was really meant to be more of a little bit more in-depth explanation in the process. But we may look at that because it could be confusing, when you're looking at the ranked projects and comparing that. But I'll just mention what some of those were real quick.
Yeah.
Rockland Road, doing improvements to Rockland Road, needed improvements to Sanders Ferry Road, improvements to West Main Street. Some of that, reducing those open curb cuts, maybe some medians, and proper location of turn lanes and things like that to improve things. Improvements on New Shackle Island Road, improvements to Drakes Creek Road, improvements to Saundersville Road, like what we were talking about there, Alderman. And then also, which I thought was really pretty cool, and it's validated by the survey, is looking at some creative, out-of-the-box thinking for access to Drakes Creek Park. And so you can see in the plan, we have a couple of different, maybe difficult to do, but we are looking at the possibility of a couple of things with that. It could be costly, could be difficult to construct, but we're looking at all of those things. So those projects, Alderman, were just kind of a little bit of an explanation, going a little bit deeper into some things. But bringing that up, we did kind of think about it where it's like, I hope that's not confusing, because we're kind of going into detail about those. It doesn't really give them a leg up on the priority. It's just kind of explaining some things, because one of the focuses of the survey was talking about future growth. And so this was sort of an attempt to, there to kind of say, well, as we're thinking about future growth, these are some examples of some things that could be projects that would help with future growth. So very good question.
I will say letter B, the Saunders Ferry Roundabout.
Yes.
Right there, that's, I'm not opposed to roundabouts. I think they're they can be strategically used, and I would be very curious to see if that looks like a good place to have one if we're going to do it. Just knowing what that intersection looks like.
Right.
But they can hinder traffic as well. So I would hope that we would do anytime we're going to be considering roundabouts that are super expensive as well, that we at least do a traffic study. But I think just off the top, from my experience, that looks like a good place to have one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for pointing out this key projects that could mitigate current growth impacts. Rockland Road, yes, that is a heavily trafficked road, and it's bumper to bumper at times. And that intersection there at Walton Imperial and Rockland Road is difficult to manage at best. So yeah, thinking about a roundabout there might be something good too. Number two, is there any way that we can, I love our neighbors, White House Water along that road, but is there any way we could plant trees to make our drive a little more pleasant as we come in and out of the neighborhood? Just a thought. I didn't know if we could do that.
It's very possible, and it's interesting that you both brought up those particular two projects.
Yes.
Because I did add, I'm going to go back, but those were two that I kind of put on there in case we were lacking some discussion to kind of go into maybe possibly those. But this is the Rockland Road Imperial Boulevard, which is, a roundabout would serve something really well there. And possibly, it's a little constrained, because of the amount of room, but possibly they're right across from Moby Dickey's at that intersection with Sanders Ferry and Imperial. And the whole idea with Rockland, with Imperial and Rockland Road, is we're looking to do possibly strategic improvements that would draw people off of West Main Street and get them on Rockland, and draw them off of West Main Street and get them on Imperial. And part of that as well, which is interesting you brought it up, with the trees, I think one of the things that we've recognized is we're trying to make it not only a good, safe way to go, and it flows really well, but the attractiveness of it too, where that it's a pretty drive, to go down through there. And so that's something we are thinking about. It's a little outside of this, but we are thinking about that from a planning perspective.
I've always used drive time as a way to de-escalate on the way home. So, but that leads me also to another quick question. In here, it talks about, it seems that traffic light synchronization, oh, where'd you go? There you are. Okay. Traffic light synchronization seems to be an ongoing process. I thought you were done with me. I didn't know. So it seems to, so is that correct? As we grow these, because we know people are fluid, traffic lights are static. So we need to improve that on a regular basis. How frequently is it recommended that we update our traffic light synchronization? And what does that cost, or what does that include? No details,
yeah.
just a general, please.
That would be something really the Public Works Director could give a more detailed. I know as a part of our synchronization project, we're about halfway done, and we've got the other half to do. But one of the things that was very wise for BOMA is funding the position of the transportation engineer, that is basically somebody that's dedicated to manage that signal system. And I think that's an important investment to make those small adjustments as we do grow or find changes to happen. I think the idea is with this, it's an ongoing improvement, not just a one-time done, but it's making those adjustments as growth happens and as traffic shifts from different parts of the community.
Is it as frequently as quarterly, or is it biannually or annually?
Maybe I'll let
Any
Jesse
thoughts?
do that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So once a plan is put into place, there will be times where either we go out and we check it ourselves, where we're informed sometimes from residents, hey, we see an issue with an intersection. But largely, I don't know, Jason, if this mic, there it goes back on. Largely, if we don't experience new growth or new traffic patterns, if the synchronization is working well, it is a maintenance effort for synchronization. We will probably continue to be more detailed with our traffic plans, like this week and last week. We're fine-tuning how Indian and how Cherokee work on Main as school lets out.
Yeah.
So we're implementing a 30-minute traffic timing plan to relieve traffic flow from the schools. So as we get that under our belt, we'll probably move.
So these are
over to-
customizable and situation-driven.
Yeah, and so as new
Event-driven.
development comes in and we see new impacts to areas, then that's when we'll really go and evaluate. Other than that, if everything is working well and the equipment is working well, then it will kind of be status quo. But systems that are sophisticated like that require constant maintenance, just like a high-performance car. It's something that you
been
have
talked about
to
for years.
constantly maintain.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's
you,
all I have.
Alderman Garza.
Oh, yes, thank you, thank you. I just had a question and then a comment. I'm looking at the Center Point Road improvements, and obviously it affects Jeff and myself. There's no status on the notes on this at this point, but when you look at this number here, up to $20 million, I mean, I can see it's not a priority, right? So that's just the comment I had on that, because I know it's gonna be necessary evil, especially with Mansgrove's adding 325 more houses. So the congestion's gonna get even worse down there, especially if you continue to grow in that area. That was not really a question, more of a comment. But my other comment would be, related to what Jeff said, maybe driving a roundabout should be on the driving tests. Because, I mean, I drive a roundabout about every day over by Sam's, and there's nobody intersection except the two stopped cars. And I haven't understood that yet. So obviously, someone's either never driven a roundabout or they've never been taught how to.
Maybe we can put it on the website with a little instructional video.
Something. Because if you look at this, I mean, I think that Wessington and Old Shack Island should be a roundabout. 'Cause, I mean, in rush hour, I mean, I set at the stoplight there for, I'm 35 cars deep. Just go straight. And then everybody can't figure out what to do. So, and I think at the Rockland Road, Imperial, needs to be a roundabout. Because if you're coming off Rockland Road, you're not turning left there.
Yeah,
No way you're turning left there unless it's 2 in the morning.
that's true.
You know, just a thought. I know it's being funny, but I'm serious about,
Well, we want to risk your life.
well, that's true. But the amount of, I mean, we can't stop poor driving, obviously, but maybe we can find a way to talk about roundabouts, you know, because I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Thank you, Alderman.
Mayor, you have a comment?
Sure. Alderman Bergdorf, you mentioned something earlier that as a staff, we've sort of been talking a little bit about. We have a tree fund, and it's sizable, and, yeah, I don't sound real loud, do I? It's sizable, and right now, we're restricted to using that on public property. We're looking at ways to be a little bit more flexible on that. And this study made me sort of think about that, so I sort of like where you're headed with that.
Thank you, Mayor Cleary. I appreciate that. I was going to speak to your Economic Development Coordinator, Jay, about this. He had offered some information to me as well, and I'm glad we're on the same page. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Mark.
Just a couple of comments. The Drakes Creek Park new connector, I love it. I wish it was ranked higher than 27.
Which one do you like better? That's the question.
I like option 2, because that's where all that traffic stops, and
Yeah.
so it's too bad it's only 27. And looking through the materials and the amount of effort Sarah Locke and her team has put in on this, I just want to give her my compliments, and you guys as well.
Thank you.
Alderman Collins, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry, I had another meeting right before, but I did want to ask, do you know the construction timeline for Old Shackle and Walton Ferry?
3 years.
Oh, okay.
And you might not have been here a little earlier, but the utility relocation has already started.
I've seen movement there. My next question, are any of the roundabouts that Alderman Garza will appreciate this, are any of the roundabouts that we're talking about multi-lane? I just don't know if we can do it.
Yeah, I think it would, that's something we'd have to look at on a design basis. It's very possible to take 2 lanes, convert it into a larger 1-lane roundabout, and then come back out to 2 lanes. So we would just have to see with the specific situation to see where that is. But it can be challenging. A 2-lane roundabout could be challenging, but that can be funneled into 1 lane. But there's a lot of different issues to look to make sure you're not constricting the actual flow of traffic.
Okay.
By
I
that.
can just say for myself that we moved here over 20 years ago from DC, and like Logan Circle and these roundabouts
Yeah.
that are 6 lanes, I would get through them, but I swear it was based on instinct. I really never understood how to do it and what lane I was supposed to be in. And I just, a 1-lane roundabout, I feel it's easy, okay? But multi-lane roundabouts, I will have concern.
And so as Keith mentioned, these items, we would look at them more in depth, but one of the options, we've talked about medians here, we've talked about protected turns, protected left turns, protected right turns. One of the things about medians is that if you have a raised median, you can make a protected left turn. And if you have turn lanes, then a single lane road with protected turn lanes on the right, protected turn lanes on the left can more easily handle, you can go single lane where people can get off to turn left and get off to turn right if they're protected. So some of these improvements might not just be a roundabout where we have 2 lanes, but how do we do a center median maybe so you could do protected lefts and then have turn pockets as well, so that in some places you have multiple lanes when you're going to turn right or turn left, then it can be a single lane at a roundabout. So those are all things we'd consider as part of a potential roundabout project.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, the next steps would be, it's like, okay, here we are now. Where is this thing moving forward? And if it's okay with you, I can lay that out, Mr. Chairman. So the next steps moving forward would be what would be good, and would be good to get feedback from BOMA, and not just BOMA, from the public as well. So that we've made the draft of the plan available to BOMA, but also available to the public. And if you had any particular items that you'd like us to flush out more, or some suggestions, or if there's a project that's not on that 35 listed projects that is a significant project, to bring that to our attention. I think if you have anything, you can just let me know or email me, as well as the public can just email me at planning@hvilletn.org, and we'll take those comments and we'll try to incorporate that in. And as Jesse had mentioned, we have the initial comments from our third-party reviewer, and we'll be evaluating to look to incorporate some of those in as well. And then we're looking to actually have the next draft, which would be BOMA draft number 1 of the completed revised plan, on October the 7th. And then we would have that plan, and then we would get it to our third-party reviewer to take another look at it, and make any suggestions that they may have. And then we'll get that back from them on October the 25th. And then we're looking at November the 18th to complete a then final revised BOMA draft number 2. That'll be really the final draft of it. And then coming back on January the 14th to the Capital Projects Committee for review and request for recommended action. And then going January the 28th, 2025 to BOMA for a resolution. And then what that does at the end of the day is BOMA then acknowledges the document and accepts the document. Then any future things, though, as far as funding projects and things like that, that would be in a separate approval, maybe during the budget or a special budget type of things, if you were funding particular projects. But as Jesse had said, then this document can be a document that can help give some guidance to BOMA on what are all the projects that we have imagined there could be, and then set those priorities. And so that is the next steps looking forward.
Keith, will there be a public hearing, a public hearing where citizens can comment?
I think what we'll do is at that next capital projects meeting, just like we are this evening, the public would be able to comment there, and as well as we would make it where people could, that resolution. Yeah, that night of the resolution, which isn't necessarily, we're not necessarily always have a public hearing with the resolution, but we could have an opportunity for the public to comment there as well. So there could be 2 more formal kind of opportunities for the public to make comments.
Good. I want to give plenty of opportunity for the public to comment, on the plan before I vote on it. I'd like to have that input.
Yeah, too.
Okay.
I think that's important. Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you very much. I know y'all are shocked because I've been so quiet tonight.
I didn't know you were down there, to be honest with you.
I saw you over there.
I'm telling you, it's been one of those days, trust me, let me tell you. But just a couple of things that I probably can help, since Sarah's, hopefully, her grandchild is going to be okay, and I hope it happens tonight, that it's great and wonderful, because I know she'll be proud. So I wish her the best. But just a couple of things. The reason I've been very quiet tonight is because in Public Works, we know a lot about this, and I don't want to take away from my distinguished chairman on capital projects, because I don't want, to be an interference of that. So that's why that I've been very quiet about it, because I'm very familiar with these plans as being chairman of the Public Works Department. But I do want to say a couple of things. One, I agree with my colleagues about having a public hearing. I think it's in the November meeting, at the 18th meeting, or it's one of those, it's far out, but it's in November, I think it is. But, I'm sorry?
In January.
Oh, in January, I knew it was far out. But I recommend that you do have a public hearing for that. I think that's important, because it allows our constituency to know what their city is doing, you know, with the things that, where we're going, what we've planned, and if it works for them, or if they have a different solution, or maybe a different side of the story, they can come and tell us. I've always been a fan of public hearings, and I think they're very important for doing our job as well. Another thing, too, I wanted to tell my colleague from 1, Alderman Bergdorf, as rest of the committee, and I'm sure Sarah would know this, because I will tell you, I've been on her back. I can say that now since she's not here. I've been on her back about that Rockland Road, Imperial Boulevard right there, because it does get backed up. And so I've said, do a traffic count, do a traffic count, do a traffic study. She goes, Mark, we've done a traffic study. We've done traffic counts. We've submitted it to the state. It does not warrant a red light there, because I'm not going to say what my terminology to Sarah was a little different than it is tonight when I speak of that, because for many, many years, I've had to sit along with the rest of our people because a lot of people use that in Ward 1 and 2 that goes down the peninsula and to go home quicker, you know, than Main Street. And so they go ahead and they do that, and so I was saying, man, we got to do something there. So we haven't really put our teeth into it yet, but we have been studying a roundabout there. I don't know whether I'm for that or not, because one of the things that she and I agreed with is we wanted to see what the roundabout was happening over by Sam's, you know, because that was our first one. So we wanted to kind of look at it, although the roundabout would be bigger at the post office right there at that property, because we own that property right next to the post office. A lot of people don't know that, but there's a little strip right there by the bank. That back side, you know, that it's just grass and nothing there. City owns that. Yeah, I mean, so it might be a good possibility, will help us with that roundabout there. So it is being looked at, but not a hard look, but we have been talking about it. And then one other thing I wanted to say is about our synchronization project. That will always, once we get it completed, which, and we are doing, that will always be one that we're going to be able to tweak and look at, because our traffic patterns, as you well know, in the city of Hendersonville, change a lot all the time, just because of the growth that we are having and experiencing in the city of Hendersonville. So those are and to me that's a plus about the synchronization program, where we can, you know, where we can tweak it, you know, right here at City Hall. And so I'm looking forward to that thing to being complete. As you well know, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but even our traffic on Main Street have you noticed, to get through Main Street, you hadn't heard me complaining, you know, about eating a barbecue sandwich from Center Point Road, and I hadn't even gotten to Walton Ferry and Old Shackle, and I'm still eating it, you know, because we are listening to music, you know, in the car. But now we've been cruising, but it's because we've recognized that the city, mayor and city staff, along with the board of mayor and aldermen, have recognized that was a problem, and it's becoming a lot smoother ride. It really is on Main Street. So I'm proud of that. So these are some of the things that I wanted to let people know, that there, you know, because Skidmore's not saying a word. What's wrong with him? Well, just want to let people know I'm on top of it. And this is a really good project. And I didn't want to take away from my colleague, my chairman over there, and ruin this, because this is his board. This isn't mine. And yeah, well, it is your board. And so that's why I wasn't saying much. I was being real quiet tonight. But anyway, I thank you for your time, Chairman. And I wanted to let you guys know about those two, 3 or 4 questions that I had some information that may be pertinent. Thank you.
Alderman Skidmore, you and Alderman Bergdorf, this is completely off the subject, but it's important to the city of Hendersonville.
Yes, sir.
I wish that y'all would bring a resolution to the board asking for a new post office in Hendersonville. Our post office is antiquated, it's horrible, and I know that that's a federal issue, but why don't we do and if y'all will introduce one, I'll co-sponsor your resolution to try to ask Congress for a new post office. I know that's
Well,
off the
Chairman
subject.
Skidmore and I, or Alderman Skidmore and I are antiquated.
Yeah.
I'm quite fond of antiquated.
All right.
But, no, I'm just teasing. Thank you.
Now, and my response to you with that, my good friend, is I'd be happy to do that. And over my course of years of politics, I've made some friends up there in Washington, and maybe we might be able to get something done.
Good.
But we'll do that. We'll get a resolution or something, maybe,
Great.
because that's where it's going to be coming from.
Good, Alderman Sassy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Quick question on page, I'll get it right this time, page 20. We have the Indian Lake Road school zone improvements. I'm just wondering, is this, because this is mainly going to improve and affect the traffic flow for that school, is that something that we can go to the county or to the school board to help pay for this? I know it's, not very timely,
Yeah.
but,
Well,
So they helped us initially with the right turn lane that we have there now, because there wasn't that right turn lane there until really 2 years ago. They helped us with that. We've had some conversations with them about that. This project, as you notice, goes beyond there. And it's not just an issue for the school. It's really the school traffic that causes the issue. It's also an issue on Gallatin Road. Jesse or Keith, anything lately from them on this?
so we have approached them about this specific project?
It's been a little while. Some other requests have moved
Yeah.
ahead of those.
Yeah, they have. Can't imagine what.
I'm certainly open to doing that. They were
Thank you.
helpful. They were helpful with the sort of first phase of that a couple years ago.
All right, great, thank you.
thank you, Alderman Sassy. Okay, is that all from the staff, Mr. Eckenroth? Does that conclude your testimony? All right. What I would like to do at this time, and I know the hour is long, but I would like to just ask the staff and the mayor for any updates on existing capital projects, information that this board and BOMA members might be interested in. So, Mayor, you want to start off the discussion and
No.
any topics?
No, not at all. No. I do want to mention one thing that came up just a few minutes ago. A couple people mentioned this. If you look on page 12, the ranking criteria and the weight of those, the ADT, the average daily traffic counts, we had a couple questions about that. That is number 4 at 15%. And then the traffic flow, that's the LOS, the level of service. That's at 10%. I'd like the staff to look at possibly those should be reversed. Possibly the traffic flow should be 15% and possibly the ADT should be 10. I just feel if traffic is moving well, I feel like the traffic flow is more important to people than the number of vehicles on the road. I say this at a risk, and that is that I'm asking smarter people to reevaluate what they've done, people who are smarter than I am. So quite frankly, they may come back and say that's a silly idea. But I just like staff to look at maybe those two need to be changed. Probably more importantly is that we have been to the county meetings 4 times, and we were making some progress about the roundabout. And Monday night, we failed to get on the agenda to be considered for approval of connecting and altering a county road. That's all we're asking for at this point. Countryside Drive is connected to our road, Drakes Creek Road. In order to create a roundabout there, we will have to alter a county road. The other roads are our roads. Countryside Drive is not. That's all we're asking for at this point. We do need to acquire some property. We hope that we don't have to go through eminent domain to do it. If we do, we have made the obligation, and we feel like we have a legal obligation to go back to the county if we can't acquire that property through negotiation. That's a different issue. What we were asking for Monday night is, can we tie on to Countryside Drive and alter that road? That's what we're asking for. Again, we failed to get on the agenda. I've had some conversations since then that give me some hope and some optimism. And so working with staff and with our city attorney, we're trying to figure out what the next step is. Like I said, I came back from the meeting on Monday with a very low level of optimism, but that has gotten better in the past couple of days. I don't know what the next step is, but I'll inform you all pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And as chairman of the Capital Projects Committee, I think my responsibility and the Capital Projects Committee is to promote and to provide oversight for those projects that have been approved by BOMA during the budget process. And so I have been a strong proponent of that project because I feel that that is the voice of BOMA. And plus, it's in my ward, and I think it's a good strategy. So be that as it may, are there any other comments before I ask public comments? Any other board member? Yes, Alderman Collins.
Jamie, I'm glad you just Mayor Clary. Could you clarify, you said that if we have to use eminent domain, we're obligated to go back to the county, or we should, or what?
Yeah.
I didn't really, what
So-
are you implying?
so
Or if
there's
you
th-
don't think it's appropriate to talk
Yeah.
about that,
I'll-
because
I'll
it's legal
talk-
things we
yeah.
could do.
I'll
we
talk a
don't have
little
to.
bit about it.
Okay.
Is that there's some county commissioners that said, no, we don't have to come to the county commission, but I've told them that I think we do. And so it's really up to attorneys to figure that one out. But I've been saying that I think we do.
And
Now,
that's for eminent domain?
Right,
And
right.
does this, but not it doesn't hold true for the access to Countryside Road?
we definitely need their permission
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
For the access to, we definitely have to go to them for permission on that, for that. As I learned long ago, that when my city attorney pretty much gives me advice, I almost always follow it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then I will now turn to citizen comments. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask
Alderman
Jesse,
Carter.
do we currently have a traffic engineer? Have we?
I think October 18th or the 21st is the start date, and I
Okay.
believe that'll be the city's. I think in the last couple of years, it'll be the first time we have filled that position. So he was from the area, and then he'd been working with the Department of Transportation for the state of Arkansas. So he is
Okay.
moving back here, wrapping up his affairs there, and should start shortly. So we're excited. He will have a full-time job of basically monitoring our signal synchronization. So to Mr. Bergdorf's question, how often do we evaluate that? We're going to have someone full-time who's always looking at that system.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, we have one person that signed up for public comments, Mrs. Donna DeSoto. I'm sorry. DeSopo, I'm sorry, that. That's right. Well, that shows you how old I am.
I know. and
It was
didn't
a hell of a
last very
car,
long.
too.
It didn't last
Okay,
very
Donna,
long.
thank you for being here. Thank you for waiting patiently. And we're anxious to hear your comments. And we have 5 minutes.
Okay.
for comments.
First, I want to thank you all for doing this as, I believe, as a proactive approach, and also the team that put together this presentation. And so I want to get that out of the way. I also want to thank my aldermen and some of you that are asking very pointed questions, because we're here for a reason, and the reason being, unfortunately, things that are done in the past, we cannot replicate. So we have to understand history and what went wrong, and I have my own history with the city and how things can go wrong and how poor decision-making negatively and adversely impacts communities. And I can attest to that. But what I want to do here is also a few things, because there's a lot of money on the table, and I'm here because somebody informed me about things that were happening, and I'll talk about study design, bias, things of that nature, and we have to get it right. We can't get it wrong. And I can also talk to you about having, I left my phone over there, but about this roundabout, this push for roundabouts. And when I hear those kinds of things, sometimes people have an end result that they want, so everything can be skewed and biased, and that's one of my concerns. So what I will say is that I kept hearing 92% was said to me, because I was asking for simple things, and me in the environment of, you're the sweetheart, thank you so much. In an environment that's heavily regulated, like pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of data, a lot of studies, and I spent 22 years examining studies, so I know what studies are. So sometimes we're saying things are studies, but they're not studies. They're conjecture, they're assumptions. They're not based on either individuals that know exactly how to do, how to create, who's doing what. There's a lot of detail that needs to be presented. So I'm going to do a level setting and what we call fair balance. I had no idea about a survey. It was news to me, so I don't even know how all that information got pushed out. But just the outcomes of the survey, and I'm going to highlight that very briefly. I did a search of 2022. We had less than 65, so it was 62,000 people. But thank you for saying about 65,000. So you look at an end population, and of 65,000 people in a city, only 2,442 responders. You know, you can't even get 1%. That's like a 0.03 something less than 1% of people responding. Also, surveys and how they're designed and the questions can also lead. Things are too broad. People really don't understand what you're actually trying to get at. But it's no secret that traffic has been a huge problem, and citizens have been coming here for years and saying too much growth. It's poorly planned or no infrastructure to support the growth, so here we are. So hopefully surveys and things of that nature are pushed out properly so more people even have an understanding that a survey is conducted, especially when you're looking at certain designs, things that are hugely expensive, will have a long, long impact. You're not only going to look at today's intelligence, you have to look downstream, planners plan 20 years, okay? I heard Manskers, Dorm Farms, and Millstone are still in growth. We're still going to have growth. Also, when someone says study and ranking, I've been down that line with the street lights. When I saw that ranking, I said, this is not a study. It was heavily biased. People don't understand the variables and the parameters. Some of the ranking, too, is also going to be complexity of a project. Is this project, to achieve its goals, going to take somebody's land that they don't want taken? Why should the sins of the past become why should those problems impact somebody so adversely that this was their home and they've been here for years? And to have government say, we're going to take your land, is the worst of the worst things. So what you have to do is to prevent it. And all things have to be done, and the devil's in the detail, to make sure that you've explored every avenue to prevent one of the most basic, important things of this Constitution that we have that no other, parts of the world have, and that's called your property rights. And I heard somebody mention, too, like, oh, well, the government's going to come and tell us what to do here. Well, then we don't have a republic, because they're states' rights. It's in our Constitution. So everybody's got to start learning the Constitution, and if we have encroachment like that, we just don't have a republic. So it's pretty much game over as a country as we know it.
30 seconds.
Very quickly, Masker Farms, this has been 2018. I will tell you, and I can attest to it, we can't get out of our subdivision. It's been going on for a long time. Somebody has a heart attack, first responders come, they're not going to get out. That country road is so very, very dangerous. I also want to make clarification from Monday night at the county. You have to understand that there's an impetus here that the county's going to decide on, and if there's a net potential that someone can lose their property, and that could be in the schema, then they have to know that too. They have to know the big picture. What I'm going to say about roundabouts, we had them in New Jersey, they're gone. So we have to.
I think we're ready for adjournment.
Thank you, Donna. That's time's up. I gave about another minute additional, but time is up.
We can stick around and chat later on.
Yeah,
No, we can stick around and chat. So, but we need to adjourn. We've got a couple people who need to go somewhere.
okay, thank you. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.